Pauline Kael reviews RoboCop, August 10th, 1987, reprinted in Hooked. When the sounds of RoboCop came at me, amid the yells of the boiling-over audience, I attributed the bludgeoning line readings to the fact that the Dutch director, Paul Verhoeven, Soldier of Orange, The Fourth Man, doesn't have a particularly subtle ear for English. But something bigger may be involved. Maybe working with only a rudimentary knowledge of the language, he embraced a mass audience obviousness that he couldn't or wouldn't have settled for in a culture where he knew the nuances. In interviews, Verhoeven has spoken of wanting to make an American movie, and his idea of what's American turns out to be a punk sci-fi revenge fantasy that gets people in the audience so worked up they shriek louder than they did for Charles Bronson or Clint Eastwood. The thing that's distinctive about RoboCop is that its gloomy, frightening vision of the future is played for depravity, for kicks. Set in a Detroit of cloud-topped skyscrapers and a decaying older part of the city where rapists and vandals run wild and every day is open season on cops. The movie is shot in a deliberate, sicko, sleazo comic book style. Body parts are treated as if they were auto body parts. Essentially, it's just a hipper, more bam-bam version of the Law and Order action hits of the 70s. The ads feature the enthusiastic quote, "A stainless steel, unstoppable Clint Eastwood." At first, the hero is Murphy, played by Peter Weller, a dedicated young cop employed by the all-powerful conglomerate Omni Consumer Products, OCP, which has a contract with the city to operate the police department. When Murphy is blown apart by a gang of scummy sadists, OCP's scientists use his remains as part of a cyborg, an experimental model for a new kind of organic automated cop that requires food but is virtually indestructible and is programmed to keep order. Part man, part tank, this virtuous knight in heavy metal clumps through the picture. What gives viewers a rooting interest is the spark inside this prototype. Murphy had a woman cop partner, played by Nancy Allen, when the Hoods used him for target practice, and she recognizes him in his new armored form. She talks to him as if he were still a person, still Murphy, and he responds. Despite RoboCop's metal plating and his circuitry, some human memory remains. He has dreams in which he re-experiences his death, and he goes out to get the giggling coke freaks who killed him. Nancy Allen's short, efficient cop haircut makes her look a bit apple-cheeked, but she has a great wobbly run, and she's a quiet blessing here. She has the right soft tones to give the movie a little differentiation. It makes sense that she would get through to RoboCop's human memory. And he rediscovers his humanity in the nick of time. You can get tired of waiting for him to show something besides armor. Weller's delicate-boned face is wan in the early scenes, and during the middle section he is steel-hooded. But then his face is revealed again, his skin is stretched back, and his features are sunk in a big, no-neck face that's attached to coils of metal brains. The face seems tense, pained, ethereal. It has the imaginative beauty that stirs audiences at classic horror films. And on a simpler level, Weller and Allen suggest a rapport without overdoing it. Their chumminess is the only relaxed, pleasant touch in the movie. In general, RoboCop, which was written by Edward Neumeier and Michael Miner, is a compendium of gimmickry from The Golem, Frankenstein, Death Wish, Westworld, Superman, Rambo, Mad Max, The Terminator, Blade Runner, A Clockwork Orange, Escape from New York, Streets of Fire, and dozens of other sources. What gives it its box office cachet is its romantic plot device, man's soul survives death, and its kinky, leering tone. The picture keeps telling you that its brutishness is a terrific turn-on, and maybe it is if you're hooked on Wagnerian sci-fi comic books. The movie company has already spawned a Marvel version of RoboCop. But if you're not, you may keep flinching at the clumsy, heavy metal vigilantism as RoboCop dispatches one lowlifer after another. Some directors can make the distasteful witty. They can be nastily decadent, as Verhoeven was in The Fourth Man. But here, working in English, he doesn't have the timing or the spirit for that. This isn't gallows humor, it's just gallows pulp. When a huge, lumbering, pre-cyborg robot is being tested and goes on the fritz, it does just what you expect. And even when a scene has some fast, quirky tracking, or when it employs a flashy effect, Verhoeven's directing goes clump, clump. In this near future, the 1990s, say, the TV news is delivered by trashy, gossipy anchorpersons, brunette male, blonde female, and it comes in 3-minute media breaks that interrupt a sitcom, or maybe it's a commercial. You can't tell the difference anymore. The news reports are gleefully cartoonish about nuclear threats and a space weapons disaster, but there's no vision behind the film's 2-bit nihilism. We're told that OCP has a contract to run the police. A contract with whom? Clearly, OCP, an anagram of cop, is the city's only government. After sketching this society, with its sleek corporate wealth and its pervasive rot, the corruption is at the top, among the aging yuppie executives, as well as at the bottom. The picture goes for a pseudo-happy ending, brought about by the chief executive officer of OCP, who's a fine, socially responsible fellow. He's at the helm of a viciously corrupt totalitarian society, yet he isn't drawn satirically, as a front for the guys who run the whole works. He's the real thing, white-haired daddy god. This stuff is being called satire. That's a glorification of comic books, which may have a sharper reputation than they deserve. There are a few neat ironies surrounding the picture. The film's Detroit of the future is actually Dallas, with the help of some matte paintings. The added skyscrapers look like robot buildings. This Detroit's creepy section, where RoboCop and the woman cop hole up, and where one of the psycho villains is splattered by toxic waste, we see him in various stages of meltdown, is a rusted, abandoned steel mill outside Pittsburgh. Verhoeven, who had a failure with the 1985 English-language film Flesh and Blood, has been explaining that RoboCop deals with a very Christian thing, that it's about a philosophical situation, death and resurrection. Of course, the resurrection of his career. He's come back as a man without sensibility, robo-director. So thank you for listening.